Queues. Lines. Waiting in the eternal hellscape. Doesn't that sound delightful? Isn't it the best part of any vacation? You would never dread something like that, right? Right? Whether you love it or hate it, the queue experience is expected at any theme park, but the silver lining of Walt Disney World is that they know how to do it right. Leave it to Imagineers to take something usually so miserable into something bearable. Even with all their efforts, it is a 50-year-old project. Some queues are going to be prettier, and some will have more to do, and I'm here to rank them. Yes, every ride and attraction at these 4 beautiful parks will be ranked based on how much I enjoy standing in a line. Let's get on with the show. Almost. We have a few disclaimers. For starters, this isn't a travel guide, but more something to have on in the background if you love theme parks as much as me. If you trust my opinion, though, good on you. Just know this is more good-natured fun than research, travel, and vacation analysis. Second, this isn't a channel for kids. I won't be saying anything too nasty or profane, but also, I'm not Cocomelon, and I'm not a babysitter, and this is your warning. Now, how is this ranking gonna work? What qualifies as an attraction anyway? Any ride that moves you automatically counts, as long as it has a place to get on and get off. This includes in-park transportation of all the 4 major Walt Disney World nations, but transportation between parks doesn't count, so no Skyliner or monorail. For shows, I'm including any that has a major queue or loading area and multiple showtimes throughout the day. Sounds specific? It is, because it won't include big spectaculars like any fireworks show or Fantasmic. This also won't include any walkthrough attractions because there's no real distinction between attraction and queue. Any ride that's closed for refurbishments at the time of me writing this will have its queue compared to the way it was the last time it was open, since I picked maybe the worst time to make this video and everything is under construction. The final bit of housekeeping is our sponsor. Me! I don't have a sponsor yet, but I'm working hard to reach the YouTuber Creator Fund, so sharing this video to your friends will be a big part of that. Give a sad little Victorian boy your time and follows. Please, sir. Please. Now, with 2 pages... Oh my god, we're at 2 pages already. Of exposition out of the way, let's rank all Walt Disney World attraction queues from worst to best. Do the Main Street vehicles count? It's here because it fits my criteria with one glaring issue. It doesn't have a queue. But it does have a general location where it loads and unloads, so there should be a big old goose egg all around. But I gave it one eensy-weensy pity point. When I say there's no queue, I'm not joking. The way you get on this ride is by waiting on the side of the road like a hitchhiker, asserting that you were there first. How am I supposed to give this a theming score when it doesn't have a concrete entry point? The theming could be considered all of Main Street, but if I counted that as a factor, we'd be here all day judging the design of the lands and not the queues, and that's not our mission. The only place this got its measly pity point is comfort, because even if you are standing on the road in the blazing heat, I can promise you, nobody's taking it from you. There's no line to wait in for a ride that lets you skip maybe 100 steps from one side of Main Street to the other. I'd have more fun walking down Main Street, because at least then, I can stop in the shops, so it ends with a single point. Man, I expected better from Cars. Luckily, we don't have any other car-based atrocities.
SpongeBob, look! Our car!
I spoke too soon. Ah, Tomorrowland Speedway. How I loathe thee. But this isn't about your ride. It's about that god-awful queue you have going on there. Don't you start me on opening day attractions and kiddie rides. This isn't just ridiculous. It's an eyesore. Honestly, at least the Main Street vehicles didn't have a queue, so I could pretend they didn't exist. The theming is the only part that gets a point, because there is a theme, which is a racetrack, but that's only visible from the main archway and after the covered segment. Besides that, the first cattle pen section of the queue is concrete and shoddy painted metal. The color combination here is better than it used to be, which I may or may not have accidentally written the first version of the script on. But here, why did they keep the yellow? The blue and white fits Tron next door, and, you know, I love blue and orange together, but these aren't even complementary colors. It's as if they saw this was located between Fantasyland and Tomorrowland, and realized they needed to blend it together. but this is more of a cotton candy garnet than a final season garnet, if you know what I'm saying. When you reach the outdoor segment towards the loading dock, it looks a little better, less scary highway gas station where nobody can hear you scream, and more inner city gas station where everyone can hear you scream. The layout itself after the covered segment isn't the worst. One thing you'll see me compliment a lot is verticality. If you're moving up and down in a queue, it's much more exciting than staying level. But that's just one sliver of hope in this Pandora's box. Comfort here is horrific. It moves obscenely slow due to the loading speed, and God forbid you go on an extra humid day, because that first section feels like you're one of those frogs in a slowly boiling pot of water. This is also the first of many outdoor queues to have these intermittent umbrellas for cover. Since this is one of the rides that operates during the rain, what on earth is this intermittent cover gonna do? With the overhead curve of the umbrellas, those are perfect funnels to pour water on you. Hope you like the itsy bitsy spider, cause that's gonna be you. Of any ride that desperately needs a tear down and build back up, it's this. Which, I'm not so much of a Disney adult that I spend my time figuring out what IPs would fit best in parts of the park, considering an IP that would perfectly blend the themes of tech and tomorrow with the fairy tale feel of Fantasyland. In its standard state, this is one of the worst to do it. The only reason it isn't in last is because it is an actual queue. It's long, it's hard to sit through, and it's wet. Hey, this is just like...
Everyone knows her father's a lunatic. He was in here tonight, raving.
Whoa! Slow down, Maurice.
Ah, Hollywood Studios. These stage shows are just gonna ruin your average ranking, aren't they? These are a pretty major part of Hollywood Studios, more so than other parks, because the baseline of the park involved bringing the movies to life. But their queues are... I assume this is for practical reasons, so shows can be switched out, like a real-life backlot or theater district. Or that's what I would say if any of these shows had been switched recently. That being said, Beauty and the Beast live on stage is one of the worst detractors of this because it's entirely outdoors. And while it's easy to look at, it's got one poster for the show, and a bunch of stock image flags of the main characters. Where's the pizzazz? You can put a few roses around, no hidden designs of characters. I think the show has been playing long enough that nobody will fault you for some minimalist princessy charm. I would even accept a redesign of the posters to be more unique, not something my 8th grade theater group slapped together in Word to promote our show. All it is a well-kept pathway and a fountain. And yes, I'm aware that this area of the park is themed to Sunset Boulevard, not Beauty and the Beast. And while it does fit that theme, that isn't a theme that stands out on its own. Some attractions, even in this section, make use of that era creatively. Others have this behind-the-scenes theming that makes their auditoriums make sense to be so bland. But I could slap any banners on here and say, oh look, it's Graggle Yagami's Family Christmas! Your adorable fountain can't fool me! If there is a Graggle statue in the middle, they are none the wiser what this is supposed to be. At the very least, even if the whole thing is outdoors, you rarely wait in this line, typically a walk-on because of high capacity, so even if you're worried about weather conditions, you can typically scramble to a seat and ignore the queue entirely. Because of this lack of theming, there's no real pre-show either. Nothing to look at hinting at the story. Not even the cast members have Beauty and the Beast themed costumes. If I forget I'm sitting in a queue to get on something, it may be good for a cranky family that wants a place to sit, but it tanks when I'm talking about what makes a good queue. The only fun I can muster from this is if I jump in the fountain like a little bird homunculus, but that's not socially acceptable, so it gets nothing.
Oh no. Father's playing with his trains.
The worst thing a queue can be to me for this ranking video is boring, and we're all aboard the Nothing Burger Express. Sorry, the Wildlife Express train. There's a small path into the Harambe train station. Its other station is in Conservation Station, which... this is just the Magic Kingdom bus stops again! I prefer the open concept of an actual train station to this one. I'm being a bit more lenient on the theming here for the same reason I was actually hard on Beauty and the Beast, which is that it fits the area well. It's much more distinct to the location than the Theater of the Stars, because the Theater of the Stars could be in any city. It doesn't feel distinctly Hollywood. This at least feels distinctly African due to the way it's nestled into the greenery and made with a lot more care and research. That being said, it is only a train station, and Disney can get creative with their trains. Hell, if they didn't, I'm certain a vengeful Walt Disney would come back from the grave and attack them all. If anything's going to rank low, it might as well be something that most guests might not even know about. But to be honest, this is a good measure for what we're going to see going forward, and that's that even the worst of Disney queues try to provide the guests with something. It isn't the most comfortable, though. The cover is nice, but there's no movement. Standing in one place for a long time is much more painful than walking for a while, especially with a long day or week at the parks. Queues that move at a healthy pace can mitigate that. So if you're waiting in line a few minutes at most with only a dirty floor to sit on, it won't help you get off your feet. So while it's another pseudo queue, at least it offers something.
Hark! That sounds like the gentle knock of a vulnerable teenage girl. You're wet.
When I was a baby, you could only put 2 things on for me or else I'd start sobbing. Finding Nemo and the Golden Girls. But I'd rather watch anything than stand in this queue. She's hot, she's miserable, she's Finding Nemo, the Big Blue and Beyond. It's tucked in the back by the soon-to-be sniped Dino Land, a cute little sequel where Nemo and his friends from the aquarium all hang out in the sea. And it was written by the guy who made Avenue Q? It's got cute music, don't get me wrong, but let's hope and pray that you don't get in this line early, because the Theater of the Wild isn't a bad theater by any means, but if you're expecting any theming, you're gonna be a little better off than Beauty and the Beast. It has a poster in front of the theater for the show with these 3D cutouts of the characters, and that has a pleasant look. But on its own, is it just me or does this not even fit Animal Kingdom? Besides the trees painted on the wall, it's an entirely outdoor queue featuring our favorite up-and-coming actor, intermittent umbrellas. Okay, gang, take a shot every time this fella shows up. No, wait, don't do that, that's a bad idea. But on the bright side, and the bright side for a lot of these early entries, is that you're only going to be waiting as long as you allow. Keep an eye on your showtime, and you can honestly walk into these theaters as long as you don't care where you sit. I'm giving it a little bit of an extra bump up for that first look inside the theater embracing the under-the-sea look, since it feels fair to count it for the outdoor theaters and shows without a pre-show. Not the best by any means, but also not the worst.
Okay, what's going on here? Why is everything chrome?
Everything is chrome in the future.
Okay, so we want to foster creativity and imagination here. What is the perfect ideal for the future? I'm thinking space travel. But we need an idea for the Astro Orbiter. I've got it. By Mickey, I've got it. What is it, my boy? Get me a metal worker, a blacksmith, and the Public Office of Traffic Safety. Yes, perfect. I'm sorry, what? Tomorrowland, you have a miserable showing here today. This is not going to be your last visit here in the bottom tiers, because in what world is this the future? You can't even see the ride from the queue. And how do you get up there? Elevator. Yes, this slow as molasses, million-year-old piece of machinery, probably created by the same sadist behind the Tower of Terror, is how you reach the ride. It's ugly, it's stuffy, it's probably got a new disease festering in that glass. And the paint job? See, this is what I meant before when I said the Tomorrowland color scheme is in an awkward spot. The orange doesn't match up to the rest of the attraction, and be different if the elevator was supposed to be conveying a theme of blasting off. But all this is a slow, sad ascent, and the top queue still isn't good. It's just a shitty overhang. The signage is outdated, the colors are drab, and that first queue is so smushed in. Bad theming. I'd give it negative theming if I could. It's always burning hot here, and the loading speed is incredibly slow because of the elevators. You're smushed up against strangers ready to give them a big ol' kiss. 7 minutes in heaven? More like 7 minutes in the Astro Orbiter elevator, that's all I need. There is a bit of a pre-ride excitement factor when you're walking into Tomorrowland and seeing this spinning around, but when you get to that queue, it's all sapped from you. This is the Colin Robinson of ride queues, but I have to give it its flowers, it's a novel concept. No other ride does this gimmick, so it's a nice to try once at the very least. The elevator in your hotel's better, though.
I only wish to have a coat made out of topping.
Why would you do that?
Disney Villains Unfairly Ever After is Star Kids Twisted, or Twisted Wonderland, or someone's fanfiction from 2009. A musical villain review, something that should be crushing in the design department, but the exterior did not get the memo. And like I said before, this is intentional in a lot of the Hollywood studios theaters, so shows can be regularly changed out. But with as big of a lot space as this Sunset Showcase has, it leaves this one feeling especially cheap. This is a nice color palette, the pink, purple, and gold are all rich, and it makes great signage. I'm not a big fan of the wallpaper above the overhang. They're selling their show short, because production-wise, this show is grand based on the interior theater. You can see the set design, and it's very different from the outside. My theory, and this could already be confirmed or pretty stupid, is that this is going to move when the Villains Land opens in Magic Kingdom, which is why they wouldn't want to go all out with the exterior design yet. Again, I'm probably making this sound pretty inaccurate because I haven't been there yet for myself, but from footage alone, maybe some issues will mellow out with time, but I'm not holding my breath.
I'm Dame Judi Dench. The first swimming pool was a grave that got filled up with water.
You! See, I've been visiting Disney World since I was a little tot, and me and my totally normal family unit have a very specific way of starting our park days. And every time at Epcot we started Spaceship Earth. I have played so many games of sticks and rock, paper, scissors in this line. I have eaten so many crushed peanut butter sandwiches here. Do not cite the deep magic to me. I was there when it was written. Whoever thought this twisty, symmetrical maze where I look so close to the ride, only to loop across to do it on the other side? If a sadist made the Astro Orbiter elevator, a masochist made the Spaceship Earth one, and now he's walking ahead of me with his screaming family of 5. It is god-awful ugly here, too. Those metal and chain cattle pens are going to become familiar friends by the end of this. There's some flowers, I guess, because when I think of the history of human communication, I think of a trampled bed of pansies haphazardly shoved next to metal spokes. The mural is a pretty touch. I love being in view of it and looking at all the little details when I'm close enough. You know, the only part of the queue that doesn't move to crawl, and the interior loading dock, it's okay. It's giving Star Trek original series. But it moves so fast you don't really get to take it in. And speaking of taking it in, similarly to Astro Orbiter, you're underneath of the coolest part of the ride, the Epcot ball. So you don't even get to see the Epcot ball. Comfort level is... I'm crawling through the evil design slot made by the devil himself. You can tell me all you want to start somewhere else in the park if you're gonna keep complaining, but where's the fun in that? I like my routine. It just so happens that it's a totally buns way to start a day in the parks.
In 2005, I was the first one to think of Avatar the Way of Water.
You'd think Pandora would do a little better for a queue since it's supposed to be Immersion City. But no, the Navi River journey is incredibly bland. The Pandora rides are the Chad and Virgin duo of all Disney zones. But we're not here to talk about the cooler Pandora. This is lesser Pandora, and all it is a queue with pretty weaving work. Your vines can't fool me, I know a cattle pen when I see one. In a vacuum, this doesn't look bad. Its biggest problem is its comparison to the rest of Pandora. Without spoiling too much, the other elements of Pandora are incredibly creative in their application with tons of different settings from the movies. But this doesn't take that concept anywhere new. This could be an extension of the base path, and I'd be none the wiser. The biggest problem is how long the line gets for what it is. Because there isn't as many rides in Animal Kingdom and everyone wants to see the impressive animatronic inside, the waits get insane. And it's slow, with low ride capacity. God, I can feel that comfort score dropping. There's no discernible pre-show, you get on the boat and go on your merry way. But hey, that does fit the ride experience. Underwhelming! Of course, I have to give props to the woven statue of the shaman out front, the one highlight of the queue. But also, it's a highlight you can get without even having to wait in line in the first place. So while a lot of effort went into making this queue, it falls victim to so many other issues. No pre-show, no fun factor, but some good theming and atmosphere. If it weren't outdoors, I'd probably rank it a little bit higher. Now, for the next few entries, it's time for a lightning round! All of the next set are theater shows with boring queues and facades that aren't different enough from each other to have fleshed out entries. But let's get through it.
Captain Magma! Get him angry and he's bound to erupt!
Krakatawa!
This is a show in the Land Pavilion talking about different biomes and narrated by the French guy from Muppets Most Wanted. There's no theming at all unless you count Mall run by a crunchy mom. But it does get a little higher with than some of the stuff below. Why? It's indoors! So this is an update that came out the day I'm revising this, but Disney Junior Play and Dance is about to be removed to make way for something new. So another temporary entry. It's an outdoor cattle pen with no real weight, the overhang with the Mickey ears is cute, there's at least a little play area with theming outside. But look, I'm a grown man with manly things to do, like get on Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway.
When suddenly, the animator suffered a fatal heart attack.
The animation experience at Conservation Station is tucked away in Rafiki's Planet Watch, but teaches you what animators do and how to draw. But this doesn't really have a cue. It's got a pretty mural, but the line itself is so shoved into the corner, which isn't even necessary because this never gets busy. So, but it's indoors!
Parlez-vous Jacques Cousteau? On va! Yeah! Bon Jovi!
Even more nothing burger. There are a few of these movie attractions in the World Showcase at Epcot that are about the beauty of their country, but Impressions de France doesn't give that. It feels stale. This theater could be anywhere, not necessarily France. But it's indoors. No, you don't have Deja Vu. Beauty and the Beast sing-along is the same thing as the last, but this has a museum of costumes, so it gets a tiny leg up. Sorry, France, do better. But it's indoors. Update. It has come to the writer's attention that these are the exact same thing. The queue of this one in videos I watched showed props from the movie. I don't know if these are still there, or if they're always there, or if they're sometimes there. I don't know. It's the same queue, yeah, but I'll take fictional France over real France, so this stays here.
I am going to stick out like a horseshoe crab in a freshwater environment.
I mean, the Little Mermaid: A Musical Adventure is fine. The new signage and paint job add to this one, but not by much. Still a crummy outdoor queue, but there's some theming. I like the fish. And it's partially indoors.
What is this stuff?
It's a vast, swirling wonderland of sparkling white pleasure. Let it fill your senses with cascading, fluffy pillows of excitement and comfort as you've never felt before.
Wow, Patrick. That was beautiful.
Oh my god, why is this the longest name of an attraction ever? For the first time in forever, a Frozen sing-along celebration. You could have shortened that by at least half. But this is higher than the others because they did something the lesser theaters didn't, which is theme the queue. It's got this pretty icy blue awning with little icicle overhangs. See, this is what I mean. Even something as seemingly boring as a theater can be good if you get into the nitty-gritty of the details. The inside? Ew, oh my god, the floor is lava! This is a terrible design choice for the ice story! And I would say that this has been here a while, maybe from the last attraction, so it makes sense. But the attraction before it was the American Idol experience. Why is there orange?
The Lion King, 1.5.
The Festival of the Lion King is one with not too much to say. I love this marquee. The lettering design and the warm lighting looks great. It is outdoors and under minimal roofing, but also not too bad.
Potato!
And finally, to round out this lightning round with a positive, look at that facade! I love this red, black, and gold color scheme Vacation Fun has going for no reason in particular. This theater, being the best of the lightning round, shocks me because I never thought Vacation Fun would be one of the permanent attractions. When this debuted, I was certain this was going to be a one-and-done Mickey thing, but I don't hate it. Again, that theater is so old Hollywood, mwah, chef's kiss. If only the queue had literally anything else to do. And with that, the lightning round is over. I mean, is it that shocking that all of these were in the same spot? They typically have short wait times and mostly indoor queues with minimal theming. But hey, it's only up from here. Or around. The Carousel of Progress isn't that good. Sorry, Walt purists. Ignore the poor audio quality, I can't plug my mic in while I'm editing. But I meant the queue isn't good, not the ride. Don't worry, I like the ride just as much as the rest of you. Yet another Tomorrowland attraction with weird mix and matched color designs. But honestly, I don't hate the look of the mismatched colors on the Carousel of Progress. It fits the classic Walt Disney magic. The circular, almost spaceship look it has because the Peoplemover track above makes it surprisingly cohesive. For anyone not familiar, the Carousel of Progress is an old Disney creation, and the biggest draw of it is that the theater itself spins. Or I should say the seats spin, and that's where the novelty comes from here. The whole progress and passage of time being visible from the outset is a smart, even if unintentional, decision. But that's where my positives end. Comfort gets points because of its high capacity, but there isn't much fun to be seen. Overall, it's not the worst it could be, but unfortunately we're not out of the space woods yet.
Ooh, escalators, escalators, escalators! Ha! Escalators!
Eels.
We're going right next door to the Tomorrowland Transit Authority Peoplemover. And guess what? Guess what it is? Is this queue a highly themed space attraction? An interactive experience with fun and games? A metal cattle pen? Can you guess what it is? Enter now for your chance to win I don't know. S'more! No S'more will be included if you win, you just get bragging rights. Also, how can you not guess this? It's got decent capacity, so the comfort levels are only dependent on how much the underqueue is used. The theming has the same issues as Astro Orbiter, minimal, and ugly. And I'd wish they'd use the same orange for everything, but there's always this red and this purple. But there is a silver lining. The magical, mystical escalator. I don't know what it is about this thing, but it oozes Disney charm to me. Similarly to my entry on Spaceship Earth, the Peoplemover is what my family not only starts a Magic Kingdom day with, but typically we start our vacation with this one, so I get nostalgic going up the ramp. It conveys that future feeling so well, in contrast to the elevator on the Astro Orbiter that's just dated in comparison. But it doesn't fix the rest of the issues I have with the poor queue design in general. Maybe we now won't see Tomorrowland for a little bit.
Horsing around.
The Disney and Pixar Short Film Festival was a pleasant surprise. I haven't been in this theater since it was the Captain EO anniversary, which makes me feel ancient. But looking at queue pictures, I like what they've done with the place. All my critiques of this orange color scheme that I had with Tomorrowland go out the window because the Imagination Pavilion fits it better. The geometric floor pattern is nice, and again, it's all inside. I do wish it was a little bit closer in scope to Journey into Imagination since they share a pavilion. Maybe having it be an extension of the Imagination Institute, but I don't lose sleep over it. The walls are covered with pictures and information about the history behind a lot of these short films, and there's this curtain on the side. I think this is for meet and greets, but honestly, I couldn't tell you. I don't know, it feels so much more magical than any of the theaters ranked lower because of the Mickey Mouse and animation theming. Pretty high comfort, you can sit on the carpet floor and it's super air conditioned and there's never a wait outside. Good way to cool off. The ride equivalent of watching paint dry! It wasn't until recently that I realized there was a devout living with the land fandom, so I'm gonna pray they don't crucify me for ranking this so low. But they couldn't do it a little better? There it is, there's that delectable chrome everyone loves, except now it has nothing to do with agriculture at all. If we can look back on my Crunchy Mall comparisons, this looks like a Salad Works threw up. There are so many different textures. It's got the honeycomb floor and the watercolor wall divider. As much as I want to keep beating the dead design horse, this is the king of comfort. It's indoors, usually close enough to a walk-on, and it's got that water ride coolness that radiates off of it. Not badass cool, no, this is as cool as the nerd in the back of your history class who says he wants to play devil's advocate as soon as you get to the topic of World War II. I don't know if it's because of the way the water rides are tended to, but there's always a nice little breeze in the area. All that being said, Living with the Land did better than me, or my editing team thought it would. And by editing team, I mean my sister.
Giselle! I've been dreaming. Ow.
The Prince Charming Regal Carousel is spelled with 2 R's. Why? You have 2 carousels in the same park and you don't spell them the same. Spell them the same! While this ride is typically a skip when I go, that doesn't mean this looks bad. But that's the problem, even down to its queue. It's more of a set piece than anything substantial. Yeah, there would be major dead space in the park without it, but I don't know, the queue itself has never beckoned me forward with its calliope siren song. Queues for flat rides in general are hard to judge because they typically just circle the ride and that's it. So it comes down to its design elements, and that makes a standard carousel less than unique. But for what it is, it's adorable. Straight out of a fairy tale with its grand canopy overhead, no other Fantasyland ride or exterior gets the color synergy of the land as good as this one. The flower beds here seem to be some of the best kept in the parks too. Overall, it's picturesque with a low wait time and coverage. So why is it so comparatively low? Simple. I've seen better. It does what it needs to, but it doesn't innovate. And for a park that's all about the new, there's just more to choose from. But hey, sometimes all it needs is eye candy.
Now, blame Canada! Blame Canada!
So Canada! You kinda ate here for just a simple theater. All the World Showcase pavilions have a level of authenticity brought on by their respective countries sponsoring the project. Canada Far and Wide's queue is more creative than most, hidden down in this mineshaft looking place, and she has seating. Everyone thank her kindly. As you're gonna see, Disney is madly in love with rockwork, but this is our first really creative example. A cozy alcove with nice benches and short wait times. What more could you ask for? America!
Of all of America's secrets, the most embarrassing was that of Quentin Tremblay, the 8.5th President of the United States.
Liberty Square is fine, and the Hall of Presidents is an extension of that. Its exterior is boring and bland. The Congress building theme is fine, but more of its issue comes from its location. You pass by the attraction only if you enter the area from the center spoke, which... who does that? Maybe it's because I progress through the parks in such a specific way, but I feel like nobody uses this entrance. I don't understand why such a signature attraction is tucked back in the corner. But despite that, it isn't an eyesore. The building does look good, and there's no external queue. So let's get inside. Inside is this large oval office type room, and it's got museum elements. They're pretty scattered, especially when compared to later attractions. The carpet design with the presidential seal in the center ties the space together, and there's these big, bold marble columns. It still keeps an educational vibrancy to it, the sort of thing you expect to see in Epcot and Animal Kingdom or the Magic Kingdom. But you know the real reason people go to this queue? And it's the comfort. Nice and air-conditioned and has real seating. Real cushions! I feel like royalty. I mean democracy!
And we've also got a big musical finale from Sam Eagle. Sam, what's it about?
It's called A Salute to All Nations, but mostly America.
Great!
The American Adventure is the Hall of Presidents lobby on steroids. It's bigger, it's grander, it has a more diverse array of artifacts to look at. Without rehashing all the same points, it's got a ton of impressive marble work. It makes it so you're not waiting in a line at all, instead enjoying the space before you're allowed to move on. I especially love the American Heritage Gallery. It feels a little unfair to include this since only one other Epcot gallery is included in its queue, but that's on the designers, and I'm not taking it off this one. But in the end, even if it's well executed, there's a lot of blank spaces here. This one is a lot more sterile than the Hall of Presidents. I feel like you have to be respectful and quiet here, which is a hard vibe to match when you're in Disney World. Not bad by any means, but I'm not the target audience.
I'd like to go on record as being opposed to the use of violence for purposes of conflict resolution. However...
I know I flamed the other shows in this park for minimal theming of quote-unquote theater, but that's where the details in the Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular show themselves off. Most of the theming, while it is based on the adventure tone of Indiana Jones, is meant to be a set for the film. Maybe it's the scaffolding facade or the way the ropes hang overhead, but this is what I wanted to see with the original theme of the park. Yeah, you can see the outer walkways if you look through the plants, but as compared to most of the original park attractions, this is unique. Some of the gags here are reused from the Disneyland Indiana Jones attraction, which, yeah, they don't make the queue feel jointed, but some sight gags is better than none. it loses some points to comfort. Past the first overhang at the very beginning of the queue, the rest is just uncovered pathway with beating sun and no actual place to sit. This is made a bit worse because there's an incentive to get in this line early, which is getting a good seat so you have a better chance of being chosen as an extra in the show. And yeah, that counts as fun factor to me. But I guess it's a prisoner's dilemma, where if you want fun, you have to sacrifice comfort, which isn't the same case for everything else on the list. Overall, this is a piece of old Hollywood studios history I'm afraid of losing as the park evolves. Still, it is mostly just a path with grass, so I can't glaze it too hard.
But at least when I was at Disneyland, nobody ever forced me to share a teacup with Goofy.
The patron saint of teamwork. Nothing beats getting all your friends together and pulling the Sonic the Hedgehog special. And it's even better, because the wait times are easy breezy. The Mad Tea Party is a classic flat ride, and one a lot of people associate with the park, especially because every other spinny ride clone sucks so much more than this. They're just not as aerodynamic, I guess. But if the queue is quick and painless, why is it in the bottom half? Its theming isn't great, especially for a movie with such a distinct look. It has all the sharp angles and squiggles with a funky font, all typical Alice fare. But the plant work is less than ideal. Because plants are such a major part of the Alice in Wonderland visual style, the fact that we just get plain hedges feels wrong. You couldn't have some seasonal roses, not even a fake plant or two. Even the flowers they have sticking out of the facade could be interesting, but as they are, the cutouts just feel cheap. The colors are fine and cohesive, but what I want from my Alice in Wonderland is something weird and wonky, not just a repainted flat ride.
Holy fuck, is this wrong? But holy hell, is it erotic?
Man, again? As a musical superfan, it pains me to put this ride so low, but this may be the definition of putting lipstick on a pig. Here, though, we see a massive trade-off in terms of style over substance. She is beauty, she is grace, she puts a sunburn on your face. It's the magic carpets of Aladdin. Without a doubt, this is the best one of the spinning flying rides from a ride perspective, but its queue can't say the same. The design is totally unique in terms of Adventureland, its own little oasis in the center of the area. Big palm trees cover the queue, with this stonework carved out the sides. Obviously, the golden camels act as an eye-catcher, but in general, the Middle Eastern design work on the overhang looks great. But it isn't an issue of the looks, it's how long it takes to get through. Of the spinning rides, this is the most directly in the heat for its whole runtime. The queue also feels like it moves way slower than the Mad Tea Party, which I don't know why that is, since Mad Tea Party is the more iconic of the two. So in that case, why is this here as opposed to lower? As a queue, I have more memories of this one than I do the Tea Party, which I feel makes it a little bit more iconic. I don't know if any of that made sense, but it did to me. Here's to you, Robin and Gilbert.
I like trains. Oh, no, wait!
You cheeky bastard. You greedy little guy. You thought I wouldn't notice you have 3 totally separate queues. But that doesn't mean you're able to get 3 rankings. No. Walt Disney World Railroad, you are only as strong as your weakest link. Which is actually surprisingly obvious. The 3 different stations you can get on and off in the Magic Kingdom are Main Street USA, Frontierland, and Fantasyland. They are not made equal, that I can tell you. For the one that was made most recently, Fantasyland is easily the worst. Brief history lesson. This was added for Mickey's Birthday Bash, and when all the Toontown stuff was nuked, this ride line was cut in half. But here's the thing. It didn't even match the Toontown theme. All hard brick and iron gates. Shameful, I tell you. Frontierland looks really good. Maybe it's because of my personal love of cowboys, but there is so much prop design here that I love to look at. The exterior station is placed perfectly. Something about the stairs leading up and the underneath section with the lanterns, peak cowboy design. Maybe it's because Frontierland has a very cohesive feel to it, but anything deeply entrenched in the theme works well. Finally, we have Main Street Station. Now, if we were just ranking this queue, it wouldn't end up higher purely on location alone. The way it looms over the Magic Kingdom entrance, giving you some great views on both sides while you wait. When you think about Walt Disney's adoration for trains, this is the love letter back to it. On top of that, the indoor section has seating! Yeah! I'm suddenly transported to the most magical place I could be. A train station. Pretty decent ranking all things considered, but Fantasyland drags this one down a lot.
Excuse me, I think the word you're searching for is Space Ranger.
The word I'm searching for, I can't say, because there's preschool toys present.
So, let me come clean a little bit. I hate most of the Toy Story queues. And it has nothing to do with the theming. I keep having issues waiting in these lines and feeling absolutely miserable when doing it. For one of those, I know exactly who the culprit is. Lightning lanes. But for the other two, I can't confirm or deny if that's the problem. But this ride and the one that come after are purely an issue of waiting in the line. They're some of the only rides I avoided for a while because their queues were so relentlessly long. And this one? Oh, this one. I have a bone to pick with you, Slinky Dog Dash. I do really love the theming here. Truth be told, it probably executes the toy theme better than any of the other queues in the area. It has these larger-than-life set pieces and visual gags that set up the ride where you can see the coaster being built in real time. The outdoor line could use some work, and all the barriers are the same old cattle pens. I do want to shout out all the Toy Story Land safety spiels. They use these Playmobil-type critters getting into the ride to show safety, and they are so damn cute! Look at their little faces, I want to squish them! If the main outer section were landscape better, or given stronger gags, the theming would be much higher. Comfort level, as stated above, is bad. I don't know if it has to do with capacity or not, but waiting in this line is brutal. And look, I'm not going to use it as an argument for most of the rides because Disney has a family park and families will be there. But if there was a study done, Slinky Dog Dash would have the highest ratio of small screaming children to every other park guest. And it makes sense. The draw of Toy Story Land is going to appeal to much smaller kids, even more so because this is a great coaster for young kids to start with. But that does not make it any easier for me.
My pot roast!
Dairy Queen.
Alien Swirling Saucers is lumped in with Slinky Dog, but without all the associated trauma. I don't know what to say. While the theming is a lot more subdued, it has this little covered section that moves super fast. There's interactables too! Finally! That's what we've been waiting for! I like the Buzz Lightyear color scheme with the bright alien green, and the music gets stuck in my head a lot more here. Most of the exact same points for the above apply here, and I don't think there's much else to add, besides the fact that this queue looks even better at night. Same screaming kids, same high wait time, same good theme.
Hello, fellow adventurers! Welcome to Wild Wilderness! I'm Westbrook W. Sleet, and today we're going to explore the most complex and exotic creature in all of nature. Man!
Is a low placement for this ride also a result of personal bias? Yeah, but hey, that doesn't make it bad to be at this point. Just mediocre. Kilimanjaro Safaris is the flagship attraction of Animal Kingdom, especially with families wanting to get a look at all the animals and get good pictures, and because of that, these waits are miserable. I don't know if it's because I've had consistently bad luck here, but for some reason an hour wait on this thing is a death march. Maybe it's because the line is slow, but that feels unfair to it because it has pretty high capacity, all things considered. Maybe I just keep going on days where I'm already in pain, but this is always a dreaded experience. The architecture is typical of what you can find in all the rest of Africa Land of the park, but that's not a bad thing. This queue shines when there's little details. The overhead translations of English to Swahili are a good learning tool, emblematic of what older Disney was trying to pull off. Then, after that is what I'm counting as the pre-show, which is the overhead video explaining not only other Swahili phrases, but ecology, environmentalism, and facts about the animals themselves. The overhead video has always been one of the better ones, in my opinion.
Hey, remember when you insisted you could juggle the eggs? And you dropped one!
This one was a toughie, let me tell you. On one hand, the Indoor Mexico Pavilion is beautiful, but Grand Fiesta Tour's queue is so awkward. It's far into the back of the pavilion and very squished, which is good because this never really has to handle overflow. While the visuals aren't the most strong in a vacuum, I don't know, I think it's comforting. There's lots of lesser details in here with the lanterns and posters with Jose, Donald, and Panchito. Comfort is really high because of its nature being a walk-on, and also back to that weird cold breeze and water smell that Disney boat rides have. It is a godsend to get on this ride when you're boiling outdoors. And the best part is, Norway's right next door, so most people avoiding heat or rain are going to beeline it to Frozen, leaving this line nice and quiet, even at peak hours. So yay! Donald rides another day. The Barnstormer. I remember when they first had the barn theme for the Barnstormer. Sweet, sweet Barnstormer. I always hated it. Okay, not true. But the Great Goofini theme is better than a lot of people give it credit for. It's really cute. It's a little sparse, but similarly to the Grand Fiesta Tour, this one's usually a walk-on. I think I just happen to be a sucker for anything featuring the Fab Five, so Goofy being featured is cute. The overhead umbrellas don't actually suck here as much, especially because you can see where the trampolines were cut out. It is the most unique aspect of the Storybook Circus. Its location is definitely a big detractor because of how visible Tron is from where you are. It's just kind of funny to be waiting in line in a cutesy circus and to see a big, scary, techie box behind you. But not enough to change how I feel. Even if it's outdoors, it's quick to board, and also Goofy does the safety spiel, and not the first time he will either, so that adds a bit of charm.
A human! Do you speak English? What quadrant are we in?
Tucson?
I've been on Earth the entire time!
I don't know. This one's another one my family holds near and dear to our hearts, but the queue? This is the Heat Miser and Snow Miser of all queues. First, you sit in the slowest moving, most agitating, grating outdoor line with those stupid metal dividers. But then you get inside, and while it's suddenly cool, it's cold. I am shivering my timbers in there. The theming is rough, especially for one of the relatively new rides in Tomorrowland. It's painted in the Buzz colors with some plain printed things at the top. It's very Chuck E. Cheese in that way. But where the theming shines is the music. I can't play it here, but it's this spacey, military-y, Disney-y feel. I feel like I've been drafted and I'm marching into combat, which, you know, that is the plot of the ride. And this one has a pre-show. That buzz. Oh my god, when I tell you, this thing makes my day every time I see him pulling an Uncle Sam on Ridegoers. This is peak. Make fun of his screen face all you want. I love him. Get behind me, Buzz. I'll protect you. He really does give you the plot and objective in one go, and this is done better with another animatronic down the line visually, but Buzz is so cool I can't put him any lower. The rest of the theming throughout is hit or miss. The panels on the walls do fill some of the empty space, but it is still a lot of empty space. And I know what you're thinking, why am I putting this old and poorly themed attraction above the newer and cooler queues? And it's all Buzz, honestly. I'm telling you, a pre-show goes far here. I'm excited to see how the refurbishment changes the queue, if at all. Praying Buzz gets a new face soon, though I don't mind how he is now. It's a Small World in Walt Disney World has the best queue out of any ride in the parks. Okay, she's gone. This is so much higher than I wanted it to be. My sister's going to snap my neck if I put it any lower, though, so the theming isn't great. It's got metal barriers and a concrete ramp. That being said, the facade with the clock is so cute, especially if you're lucky enough to see it at the top of the hour. There are these glittery overhangs that match the theme of the facade as well. I wish they gave this one, like, a paint job or something. Or put something in the blank expanse of water. I don't know, something to add a little bit of vision. The comfort level is really high, though. Another ride that never has too big of a wait to its advantage. But even better, because lines are never bad, me and my siblings have sprinted down those corridors as fast as possible to get to the front. You can soar through it, and it feels incredible. Not much else to say. I don't know, this shouldn't be this high anyway. Forget I said that!
Oh, that was a wonderful story, Grandfather Gleb. But did all of that really happen?
Yep. Hell is actually real.
I debated adding Enchanted Tales with Belle at all because I said no meet and greets, but this is different. This is more show than meet and greet since it's a whole event. But the reason this got so high is that stupid mirror trick. I mean, I know how they do it, but every time I see it live, it screws with my head. But I love the lead up. It's a little cottage in the middle of an overgrown garden. The theming and presentation of this one is so good. It's the best of the Beauty and the Beast attractions by far in this park. But even then, it'd still lose to Be Our Guest if I could count that as an attraction. The signage is adorable as one of Maurice's inventions, and this was really clever in terms of the facade for the ride. It's a good way to get ahead of the curve since most of the attraction takes place in the castle, but they couldn't put the castle here, and it doesn't exist on the outside, so the warping and the queue, it all makes sense.
Oh, that's no little bear! That's my brother! Yeah!
I bet that last clip brought back horrible memories for some of you. The Country Bear musical Jamboree should by no means have as good of a queue as it does. Its main loading room is just that, a room. But something about all the relics in this being held is a good gimmick. It sells to you that this is a family band that's been around for a long time. So why is this our halfway point? Because the pre-show, of course. Meet your 3 sexy bachelors, Melvin, Buff, and Max. These 3 yapping to you while you wait for the show to start is a really good opener. Since they do in fact talk to you before the show begins, they count as the pre-show. On top of that, the comfort level is crazy. Chairs in the indoor waiting room, oh, you spoil me. It loses most of its points due to fun factor, but there are some hardcore Country Bear fans waiting for a piece of that, so some people will have more fun than me. So see you on the flip side as we make it to the second half of this list. Turtle Talk with Crush is one of those forgotten attractions when it comes to Disney. When you get older, you do lose a bit of the allure, since there's no way the worker is going to talk to you over the kid who's excited to see something about the talking fish, so what's the point? The point is the queue. This is one of the few attractions where, to me, the queue is better than the attraction itself. And that's because it's hidden in a little alcove in the corner with more fish exhibits. I love aquariums. I spend so much more time at the seas than most people do. So for me, the fun factor for this is getting to watch the little fish swimming around, as well as the theming of the info cards being more Nemo and friends. Sure, you can make the argument that any part of the seas is the same, but this is exclusive oceanic content. Does any other queue have fish? Does any other queue have live fish? The color and architecture could be better. There isn't much in the area to point to this being about Crush, as opposed to the rest of the Finding Nemo cast. So there you go, Turtle Talk with Crush gets bumped to the better half because I like fish. Congratulations. You know how I said I like aquariums? You want to know what I like more? Museums. Reflections of China and the China Pavilion is the other queue I mentioned when it came to being connected to its gallery, which is the House of the Whispering Willows. This has a rotating exhibit and currently discusses what's available in Shanghai Disneyland, at least at the time of me writing this video. It's a good time killer to go in here if you're waiting for the next show to start, but beyond that, the lobby is just gorgeous. As I mentioned before, I love red, and the red here looks great. Not much else to say besides cool museum, and gorgeous set pieces, and beautiful mural and artwork.
Oh, look! It's the 12 noon robot parade! Hurry up or we'll have to wait for the 12:05 parade!
You'll never guess what's in this queue. Go on, take a guess. Did you guess a museum? Oh my god, you're so smart! Funny enough for it to be above the last two, because this one has the worst theming of the 3 in terms of color design. Sure, it resembles the skin of a blockbuster, soon to be worn by the skin taker known as Spirit Halloween. But really, this one's almost cheating in terms of what counts as a queue, because it sort of isn't one. Walt Disney Presents is the name of the self-guided museum tour, but that being said, it all leads to the exit point where the show is. So I'm counting the museum as a queue for the show, even though that technically might not be correct. I love this museum. If I didn't make it obvious enough, I'm sort of a Disney adult, but in the really into the Epcot commune lore way, not the screaming at a character actor one. So seeing all these artifacts together that are summated from his life is really interesting, but of course your interest in it is going to differ depending on how much you like museums at all. And it is really text-dense compared to the other museums, so especially younger kids aren't going to be too interested. But overall, where else was a Walt history spot going to go? Okay, now I would say that's the end of the good tiers, which means we're on to the best, which, for it to be about half of our list, is nothing to sneeze at.
Stepped on me. Stepped on me? Are you kidding? This guy was dancing on me. I mean, just look at this. Broken, broken, gone, gone, broken, broken, broken.
And the return of the Golden Girls Nemo combo, The Seas with Nemo and Friends. Another one I very rarely skip out on besides the ride being so okay, but typically my family and I will go here either right before or after Imagination before we split into the ride group and the alcohol group for the day. Jokes aside, this queue is really underrated in most of its categories. Outside is this pretty cutout art style across the wall, resembling the one in front of Big Blue and Beyond, but actually grand in scale. There's a nice bit of rock work with some mini animatronics of the seagulls, and after you enter, it's dark and cold, and that is great. and this thing has never had a wait. The first room is all beachy with fake sand and grass and a little hut overhead with some good Imagineering. The second room is very bare bones, but smart. There's a series of barriers that are all made of this bent scrap metal from something like a sunken ship. The pillows are covered in barnacles and other gunk, but the water effect is really what sells this. There's this streaming blue light that bathes the space in water. So it's simple, which is why I can't put it higher, but since you won't typically be waiting in here longer than it takes to walk through, I don't see an issue with it. So comfort is high, theming is decent, no real pre-show, and the fun factor's mild. But overall, there's no reason not to get in this line. And there's fish afterwards!
Hey, Mater. It's nice to finally be back in Radiator Springs.
I want you.
What?
Yeah, it's hard for me to judge this one thoroughly since I'm borrowing footage over a ride that, as of me writing this, isn't officially out yet, but the new style looks really good. It has that same futuristic look that the beginning segment of Guardians of the Galaxy has, which is great since they're in the same space. Since these two didn't really have cohesion before this, it's a welcome change in my opinion. Now, one of the biggest issues of this queue is that it crawls. I remember being the first room for an entire hour before getting through to the end, which that's not going to change with the design overhaul. But unfortunately, the queue did lose something pretty major, which is its design a car feature. I get why this is the way it is now. The new theme of the ride doesn't have as much to do with designing cars and instead is about the future, but I'm still going to miss that. There were a lot of design features to mess around with. But honestly, that was probably what made the queue of the ride so insufferable by only letting people progress every few minutes, so less points for pre-show, but more for comfort. A decent trade-off. Again, this isn't a bad choice, but I will miss the fun of making a little car for myself.
No. I have this tiny, a tiny chef who tells me what to do.
This rat gave me one of the other tough decisions again. So Remy's Ratatouille Adventure, tucked away in the back of the extended Prance Pavilion. This ride is so fun and very aesthetically pleasing. It's one of the few that has a really nice overflow queue with green pillars that are unique to the French design, but the inside is a bit of a struggle meal, I would say. The outside is the ratatouille, and the inside is the ramen you make when you're up at 2 a.m. trying to finish a final. It's mostly these hallways plastered with ratatouille wallpaper, and those rooms get pretty condensed. It's hard to tell how long it takes you to get to the next spot without craning your neck around, so it's slow and it's uncomfortable and the theming isn't great. So why the hell is it this high up? Did the rat pay me? Is he under my hat right now yelling at me not to put him at the very bottom? While this gets points for being based on one of the best Pixar films ever, where it really excels is the theming it does take time to do. Of course, I'm not just talking about the pretty French facade, I'm talking about those inside scenes. The roofs of France with the Gusteau sign, the same sign you see from the outside, now that's what I call fine cooking. Looking into all the little windows is so magical. Then after that, there's a secondary scene that's as cute with this little artist nook. Even the loading dock looks good. The biggest issue is that these scenes are very few and far between. At least other indoor queues have open spaces to traverse or examine, but this feels so claustrophobic. If they would open this queue up a little more, even decorating the walls, this would be a lot more manageable. If only the rat wanted to be an interior designer instead of a chef.
We have our heading.
Here we go!
Speaking of good design and miserable line, Peter Pan's Flight. You vex me. Can I give this one negative fun points? I dread going into this line any chance it's offered to me. Yes, the ride is good and a staple of Disney culture, but for all this? I don't know a slower line than this one, to be honest with you. And you want to talk about cramped? Oh boy. This is cramped. It's listed above Ratatouille, though, because its theming and interactivity are much better here than they were in that ride. You go through different parts of the Darling household, including the exterior, before making it into the nursery. And this room is so adorable. There's something about the specific cartoony style of prop that you see in Disney dark rides and decorations that I love. If anyone remembers the old Toontown in Magic Kingdom, or even the still operating one in Disneyland, whatever that design philosophy is what makes this bedroom look so good and shiny. In terms of interactivity, the games here are pretty decent, if done before elsewhere, but seeing kids playing with this totally warms my heart. This specific room is really cozy and warm, and the soundtrack of this ride is the essence of being in Fantasyland. But the issue is the thing doesn't move. Most of the other dark rides have a decent wait time, if a little bit longer. But what do you mean the all-time average of this ride is 53 minutes? There isn't enough line space to justify this. Maybe it's my own baggage that comes along with this ride, but I don't want to put it any higher, even if it is a classic. The Tiki Room. Sorry, I'm taking a ball and chain to all the old Disney classics over here, but this is the Enchanted Tiki Room, and here it is. I bet you're shocked, and honestly, yeah, so am I. Its queue is relatively short, just a small outdoor section with a pre-show. But again, pre-shows for the win. I love to hear these little birds yapping about whatever, and it feels very personal because of how close you are to the action. Design-wise, it's very distinct and hidden away from any negative weather conditions. Not much else to say. Fast, cozy, and unique.
Thank you, BP. Thank you, BP. Thank you, BP. Thank you, BP.
Patrick, your Under the Sea Journey of the Little Mermaid bias is showing. Where? Yeah, I love her. Call her jank all you want, but she's sweet with a lot of heart. Her queue is bizarre, especially in terms of location. Being in the back of Fantasyland, being under the sea doesn't translate from the exterior because, you know, this is the most landlocked section of the parks. But the queue does a good enough job of explaining why that is. You enter the crag underneath of the castle, and I can't really tell where it goes in relation to the castle, because it looks abandoned. Most of the space is all this crag with a small interactive segment, including treasure hunting crabs, looking for something to do. We also see another in-queue animatronic, Scuttle, and he's got really great banter with the guests. I love when the right characters, the funny ones, are chosen to be the ones talking directly to guests, and he is no different. You keep walking through different rooms before making it to the loading dock, which... okay, you lost me. I cannot figure out where this is supposed to be. Is it catacombs? Is it actually the underbelly of the castle, like a boat landing? I can't tell. But the prop design is good, and all this old brickwork looks great too, so yeah, I like it. Even if it's a little bit confused on where it is in the story.
Hey! Wanna hear a joke? Here goes. My ex-wife still misses me, but her aim is getting better! Her aim is getting better! You see, it's funny because marriage is terrible.
See, don't crucify me for getting rid of all the classics. They had to go at some point, and apparently I had my scope set to Adventureland. But don't worry, the queue of the Jungle Cruise is really good. It's one I haven't looked at in detail until my most recent ride, but this one has a ton of quality sight gags. It is another semi-covered shack, which is always a bore, but you know what? Something about the old docking bay rich with the history of the Jungle Explorers? Nice. I'm a big fan of how deep the lore goes here. Albert AWOL has to be the best name ever. This queue has a lot of smaller pieces and things to look at. There's photos of the crew and the founders, which look really good, by the way. Lots of individual scribbles and bits of writing, and don't get me started on The Office. Oh my god! It is its own little pocket of concentrated storytelling. I'm a big fan of, in themed entertainment, the idea that this place exists when we're not around as guests. It's gotta have a past, present, and future trajectory, and this is one of the first rides to ace it in that department. When I walk around this queue, I'm curious about Albert, about his daughter, about all the people who have worked for the navigation company. Not enough to watch the movie about it, you know? But the fact that you can get really immersed in this from the beginning, exactly what I'm looking for. As for comfort, it entirely depends on the time of day. Which, yeah, you can argue that for any of these, but it mostly has to do with loading speed. It's on the slower side, and much more noticeable and miserable if you're waiting for an hour versus half an hour. Overall, solid showing from a classic Disney attraction. See, I don't hate them. I am equal.
Squidward will be performing his version of Solitude in E minor.
Yeah, E minor, alright, yeah!
Yeah, I said it. Philhar Magic's queue is better than Jungle Cruise's. Is that objectively correct? No, but who said this was going to be objective? We figured this out by now. I adore Philhar Magic so much. It's ridiculous, and according to a totally unbiased poll I held with my family, it is objectively the most magical attraction in Disney World, so take that. In all honesty, the queue isn't very different on its own from other theaters. The exterior has the same brickwork as the castle and feels very imbued with the DNA of the park segment regardless. When you get inside, the color scheme is a nice blue with a large mural across the back showing musical interests with this nice rainbow. Oh my god, is that polychrome pole in the parks? Oh my god! But my favorite thing about this segment is easily these posters. Man, I would always hold my family back in the line because I was staring at these. The Hades and Genie ones especially, man, do I want them. Put them in my house, plaster them across my walls, I do not care. It really adds that extra lived-in quality to the story, the idea that this concert hall is used for so many different characters. I always imagined as a kid that the shows would cycle, but again, that's just because I wanted to see Hades on screen. Guys, I really like Hercules. You need to understand this about me, and this is the only time I'm gonna get to talk about it in this video. After the intro segment, you grab your opera glasses, again, great name for the most boring thing I've held in my life, and stand in the lobby. This is less exciting than the last room, but I don't know, it feels so lush. The chandeliers that would be so dangerous if those were real flames, these big golden pillars and the walls all painted in this error code blue, and the massive curtains. And then the introduction to the theater, really nice. The pre-show's smart too. Maybe I'm just feeling excited because this was the Mickey and Friends attraction I grew up with, so hearing Goofy and Minnie in the pre-show allowing you in, and even the magic of the doors opening, is such a nice step. Great showing. I can't have it any higher when we have much bigger and better theming coming in hot.
It's okay. Soon I'll get all the me time I want, going over a waterfall in a dishwasher.
Kali River Rapids is so fun. Maybe I enjoy being soaking wet and trembling like the saddest stray dog you ever did see. But the queue is exceptional. The decorations start in this large temple area with a massive tiger statue, which, fun fact, this was to reference the original ride that was going to go here, which was called the Tiger River Rapids. But it's the density of the decor that really sets me off. There's something to look at everywhere, simulating walking through a village. There's hotels and kitchens and so much more to wander through. It almost makes me feel bad.
You're good. You're good. Yeah, come on. All the deer, come on through. All the deer. All the deer at one time. Come on, all the deer.
But beyond that, this is a treat to look at. Seeing the mixing of different Asian cultures and the decorations and the architecture leads to beautiful paintings and craftsmanship throughout. As you venture through, an informative video plays telling you that logging is bad. If you couldn't tell, the message of this attraction is to preserve nature, which is a good theme for such a woodsy and plant-covered area. While it is very atmospheric, there isn't much of a specific story being told, and that's where it loses points. The story of the ride is loggers suck, but you get that more from the ride itself, so while I totally feel invested in the world building, there isn't much being done from a storytelling and plot standpoint. But I'm not here to judge the plot of every Disney World ride. Although, that is a pretty good idea for a video. Add it to the list. This is how you can tell this ranking is totally skewed. Man, I remember when Dumbo was just another flat ride, not the star attraction in terms of theming I think it is. It's the main part of Storybook Circus, which, let's be honest, this is the reason most people over the age of -5 actually go here. But wow, this is a really good queue for how simple it is. It's the highest ranked flat ride on the list, and for a good reason, because it's literally the big top. The design is the focal point of the area, and succeeds tremendously in that regard, because it's so big and sparkly. But, you know why I put it here. It's the playground. I don't know, something about the weird restaurant-style waiting they do here. I don't know if they still do this, but having the pager some of the times I went was so funny. But yeah, this playground is sick. Is it relevant to anyone watching this video? Not really. At least probably not. I'm a big fan of any ride with an interactive queue, as we've seen so far, and this one's the craziest in my memory. I remember getting to play in the playground, even though I was the oldest of my siblings, so I felt like the awkward big kid at the time, despite being 10. When you have a theme park with an emphasis on families having these sorts of play places, that's really smart. Even more so with rides that are big hits with everyone in the family. It's good to have a distraction so bored kids can get energy out. It loses points of its interactivity because nobody besides little kids can use this, but later on there's other interactive sites that everyone can use, and those go higher. Good design and fun for kids, but it is just a flat ride.
space, the final frontier.
Space Mountain is full of justified nostalgia, if that makes sense. Unlike the rest of Tomorrowland, this segment uses those stupid chrome stanchions because it makes sense. It's supposed to be a travel agency, so being able to travel through the station this way is good, but still not great, especially comparing it to other versions of Space Mountain, but that isn't why we're here today. So how does this hold up in terms of itself? I like it a lot. Some attractions later down the line are going to be way better with any space or futuristic themes, but for one of the older entries, it isn't a bad showing in itself. It's got a lot of verticality going up and down through the queue. You know what else makes it good? The screens. The only time you're ever going to hear a Disney fan excited about screens, but the ones that are in this segment have this old feel, but one that fits the feeling of the ride. Because it's supposed to be a travel agency and you can see the departure times or looking at the stars outside, it's pretty cool, even if most of it looks better in its Chad version, which, don't worry, we'll get to it. But the secondary segment is what looks the best. After that, it does have a sort of fall off in the final loading room. Not as interesting as I would have hoped, just bathed in a neon blue, so it's okay, could be way better.
Look, I'm Woody. Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Give me that.
The divide between this ride and the other Toy Story ride should be studied by a mathematician. Wow, did Toy Story Mania catapult ahead of the others. To be honest, I don't know why exactly. Its design is a bunch of board game boxes, the same way the previous Slinky Dog Dash had model toys and RC cars, and this is getting ready for you to play the game. All the Toy Story rides have an excellent sense of placemaking, you know, shrinking you down to the size of a toy. This specific ride, however, has an indoor queue, which has a net positive in the case of this section. Again, the Toy Story section is going to attract a lot of kids, and the lines reflect that. Oh, the lines. I want to skip ahead for a second and talk about the wait times, because this ride specifically has an issue I need to address. Now, I wouldn't call myself a lightning lane scientist, but this is the only ride where I have seen the unfairness of the lightning lane system. I get it. You paid an insane amount of money to get on a ride early, but I swear, I've seen a 5-to-50 ratio of non-lightning lane to lightning lane guests, and as someone who doesn't really pay for lightning lanes, as evidenced by how much I know about the queues, this is a massive damper on this ride. It's so miserable and embarrassing when for every one family, 5 clown cars of people swing through. This queue operates like a look and find, examining all the different toys and games, some linked to the films and some not, but either way, I don't really mind. And I love the Mr. Potato Head animatronic. I remember when he was first added. He acts as a proper pre-show, the same way Buzz did, and I love this trend. I do really wish eventually we got a Woody animatronic, since, you know, he is the main character, but that's just speculation. One of the best parts design-wise is the loading dock. The whole game takes place under Andy's bed, and his bedroom is massive. This might honestly be the coolest loading dock of any Disney ride, because look at this. The giant door you walk through, the scaled up board games, it is really good setting-wise.
And he happens to be the nicest bee I've met in a long time.
What are you talking about? Are there other bugs in your life?
Remember how I said interactivity is going to make you go far? This is what I meant, because this queue should not be this high. It isn't necessarily expansive, moves decently slow, and is half outdoors. But do I look like I care? It has Eeyore's house! Of all the interactive sections, save for Dumbo, this is one of the ones geared towards the littlest kids. But at the very least, it isn't behind the age wall distinction, and is instead a part of the main queue. The first is Pooh's house, which kids can crawl into and sit at a tiny table, and then followed shortly by Eeyore's house. The biggest section is Rabbit's garden, which has a few things you can jump on or spin or play with, but many of these things don't work as they should. And then there's this little bee puzzle thing? What are those little toy bead things at doctors' offices called? Bead roller coaster? Get more creative. But you can control the bees through hives. This is one that I can admit I still mess with on occasion, besides the loud buzzing noise emanating from it. After that, the last ones are these honey screens that hovering over your handover clears off a character. Again, a lot of these aren't as responsive as they used to be, but this one's probably the most fun for the whole family. Beyond that, the walls are covered in pages from the original Winnie the Pooh stories. Also, side note, this ride proves you can make your stanchions more interesting. The ones here are the same style of wood as you'd find all around the 100-acre wood. The walls are painted sort of plain, but I don't mind since there's a lot covering them. In terms of comfort, the majority of the line, while partially outdoors, is all covered. Not that slow, especially compared to the rest of the Fantasyland dark rides, but there isn't much of a true pre-show to be shown. Overall, good job for Pooh Bear and the rest of his friends.
Make way for the 70.
Time to go literally across the street for this one. This is a much bigger queue to accommodate probably the second busiest coaster in Magic Kingdom, the Seven Dwarves Mine Train. The set dressing is similar to the Enchanted Tales with Belle, but the woodwork here is even better than Winnie the Pooh. And it isn't only the stanchions, but the woodwork leading into the shack in front of the mine has this beautiful German hand-carving style to it. Gems embedded into everything. The music is nice, and I can't explain it, but it does a good job accounting for the coaster in the background being part of the setting. The interior, taking place in the beginning of the mine, has good rock work. Gems glitter the area, even if the screens are decorated in this wooden feel. The effects in here look good too. Minor interactivity. The first is a little bin of running water where you can grab gems and put them into these spots where they're meant to go. The second is another bin that I thought it used to spray water, but the videos I found didn't show it in action, so I'll try and see if I'm right and look for images when I'm editing. And the next and last one are these barrels of gems that you can spin to project scenes of the dwarves on the ceiling. One of the best parts about this queue is how much it tries to integrate the screens into the story. Unlike its animatronics. Yikes! But the gem effect doesn't feel like an effect. Instead, it looks like the pure lumosity of the gemstones. And the safety spiels are these cutesy clockwork puppets. This is in the era where the parks started putting their all into every aspect of a queue. The wait here does get long, but it moves at an okay speed, so it's not the end of the world.
Can't be the end of the Panda King. Oh shit, goddamn it!
Big Thunder Mountain Railroad is another one subject to change since the ride is going through refurbs, but I had to include it. It's basically one of the classic rides. While the specific characterization is probably better than its Gen Z little brother, what we just talked about, this is quintessential Frontierland. I always saw it that way, even when Splash Mountain was Splash Mountain, because that felt distinctly southern and not western, if that makes sense. But when I look towards Frontierland, this mountain is what screams Frontier. The rockwork that lets you climb up the mountain is a nice precursor, even if it is the outside segment. And then the interior is good too, similar to Jungle Cruise. Lots of sight gags, though the ones here are fewer and farther between. There are a few elements of interactivity, looking through this hole at a canary, or spinning this crank, or throwing coins off the side onto the roof. Similarly to Seven Dwarves, you have a good point of view of the coaster going up and around, which really manages to hype you up for the ride ahead. I know this one's pretty comfortable too. It doesn't get too hot up there once you're inside. The most uncomfortable part is probably the awkward loading dock, which moves a lot slower than everything else. Not out of any fault of its own. It's so densely packed and sweaty. There's another queue with the same layout later down the line that we'll get to. Actually, kinda two. But for some reason, this one is really cramped. You choose which of the two lanes to go in, which, if you have a party with poor communication, leads to you being split up with no way to reach the other side. But that's not too big of an issue in the grand scheme of things. Overall, what makes it an iconic landmark is that its queue is the frontrunner of Frontierland. Also, amazing tagline. It is the wildest ride in the wilderness.
What's your favorite idea? Mine is being creative.
I'm gonna say it. I don't care about the original Journey into Imagination. Okay, that's half true. You can argue with the wall for me with this one. I know I'm a spring chicken and never got to experience the original Journey ride that everyone raves about. But just that. I never got to experience it. And that doesn't stop this version from being a major event for my family and one I love every time. It's got Mr. Monty Python, come on! Call me a sucker and a nerd, but the idea of the Imagination Institute is such a cool setting. Sure, it isn't as whimsical as much as the old one was, but this is a lot more fitting for Epcot as a park. Being a place trying to scientifically look at something that can't be quantified. I'm sorry, but that's much more in line with the future world as a whole. Is the exterior the best? No. But when you get inside, I love this. I don't know what it is. It reminds me of science museums I used to visit as a kid. Have I mentioned I like museums yet? But look at it. It has Seymour from Little Shop and Teddy Roosevelt. The screens overhead showed Figment flying in and laughing and generally causing mayhem. And also, the references here to random live-action Disney films are great for trivia nuts like me. People don't talk enough about the sight gags here past Figment. I do wish there was a little bit more, but hey, this is my ranking. If I want to put it absurdly high, I will. And Figment loves absurdity. I recently found out this is another sort of unpopular opinion, namely for its outdoor queue segment, but you know what? In the words of my sister, I don't give a gaff. This is incredible. One of the best place settings for a story with an abstract location. I don't mind the exterior, personally, but this probably comes from me only having ridden it at night. Virtual queues. Even the metal stanchions don't bother me because there isn't a clash of themes here. And also, being under the overpass with a heavy piece of machinery operating besides you gets your blood pumping. It has this science expo vibe, with the big banners and massive thruster above. Could it be better? Yeah, but comparatively to the rest of Tomorrowland, this is a godsend. Good on you. But even if you're not convinced by the exterior glow alone, or even the seat testing, which, by the way, not only are these smart, but so fun, it's the interior that gets you. You enter where the blue team enters through with all these little blue blips and beeps, and you're welcomed into the pre-show, which, for anyone who doesn't know, I'm gonna let you watch for yourself.
Users, prepare to be digitized into the world of Tron.
Awesome, right? Look at that synchronization. Ugh, it's enough to make a grown man cry. Alert, alert. Don't let him fool you. This grown man cries at everything. This is epic. Exactly what I said before about building anticipation. Your heart beats and pounds at this pre-show. Seeing the ride take off as you literally load in. A similar effect is done to this later down the line before you're ushered into the next section. You know the wire subway in Wreck-It Ralph? That's what this is. You're given a pre-show of lore and safety overhead, and the information is all about the teams, and this is where my favorite element of this ride is. And that's that this is one of the smartest implementations of IP I have ever seen. What I mean by that is Disney is going to use IP. In fact, they should. They have the rights to it, and people want to see it. But Disney has started to rely too much on retelling a story than telling something new. And in turn, it's made them not want to touch lesser-known IPs. But look me in my eyes. What percentage of people here are actually Tron fans? Not a lot. And don't fool me, don't trick me. The Venn diagram of Tron fans is hardcore Disney fans who know every Disney media, tech and gaming nerds who like the cel-shaded TV shows, and Daft Punk fans. This does not apply to the majority of Disney fans. That being said, the story of this attraction holds up incredibly well. I don't know anything about Tron, but this feels so good. It operates like all the other classic rides to me, a story that feels so centric to a park than it does a franchise, and that's how theme park attractions should feel. It shouldn't need, keyword need, to have a character in it to be like, oh my god, it's Graggle Disney! It should be able to stand alone, and Tron does that in spades by explaining the world, but keeping it simple for everyone to enjoy. Back to the design. Remember a few entries ago? It's so densely packed and sweaty. There's another queue with the same layout later down the line that we'll get to. Yeah, this was the ride I was talking about. The split line design when you have two loading tracks is very streamlined here. And how could I forget the lockers? As a Magic Band fan, scanning into these is so good. Also having to commit your locker to memory. Totally just as fun. I adore this. All around an impressive showing to round out one of the roughest lands in the park. I hope I didn't forget anything.
Hey, Peter. Hey, Joe. Damn it!
God, my opinions are rearing their ugly heads at this point, aren't they? I love Soarin'. I do and always will, and this is coming from someone who was afraid of heights for most of his life. I understand the argument that some people find the queue cheap, and might even be more blasphemous that this flight agency is above Space Mountain. And there's still another. Why are there so many flight agencies? Soarin' is easily the highlight of the land pavilion. Even with other simulators being more impressive from a technical standpoint, this is still so unbelievably creative. The lobby before you enter is literally an airport with the staff dressed as concierges. This is a clever way to blend its entrance with the rest of the land pavilion, so kudos to you. Most of the lines here are straightaways with giant ceilings, neon lights, and these large metal swoops. But the best part of this one may have the best on-ride game ever. I didn't really talk a lot about the rest of the Play Disney app games that were included with the other rides in the park. There are a bunch of these. Most of them are just trivia games and things you can look at. Maybe I'll do a different video that's discussing them, but Soarin's was one of the only ones that felt important enough to discuss on its own, and if I'm not mistaken, I think it existed before the Play Disney app did. So, tangent aside, back to this. I love the Soarin game. It is so fun. It's a trivia game where you pick a team and answer questions about geography, history, and culture, and your score gets plastered across the different, the really big signs. And I love trivia games so much. And getting not just that, but the glory of being slapped onto a giant screen. 10 out of 10. I can understand why people aren't big fans of this. I really do. But there's a scope to this that can't be beat. It's also because I used to love airports, because we really only got on a plane to go to Disney. It gave that same sort of rush within the parks. Back to another anecdote that should not affect the ranking. There is no other queue that is as fun to sprint to. Not even as fun as It's a Small World. Picture this. Me and my sister got off an extremely late ride of Cosmic Rewind, but the rest of our family goes back to the hotel. Not us. We have about 10 minutes left at the park. So what do? We sprint to the land pavilion as fast as possible, and then we walk politely past the concierge, and then we sprint through the empty line to make it to the ride. Do I endorse running in the parks? No, of course not. That's highly dangerous and against park protocol. But that's being said, who was gonna stop us? The Soarin' police? As long as you do it in a safe manner, I see no issue. The loading docks for the ride are really cool too, locked behind these chain links while the funny man who got cucked by a bee tells you he's taking you on a flight. Which, I don't think he can fly a plane. Okay, never mind, he's not your pilot, that makes me feel a lot better, but also, tangent, according to the Disney Wiki, we were supposed to get John Travolta in this role, playing a character named Sandy after the character from Grease. Was he gonna be in drag?
Name's Mondo.
The key to my heart. Incredible set building and crime. Oh, how you bless me, Smuggler's Run. While the lesser of the Star Wars ride trilogy, its queue is still delectable. And also, another disclaimer, I'm not a very big Star Wars fan myself. I like the original trilogy, which is why this is a ride that calls to me. From the very beginning, walking past a full-size Millennium Falcon, talk about an incredible set piece. This is how you know you're in for a great adventure. The majority of the set pieces here are smuggled parts, wires, supplies to care for the ships. This one really feels impressive. And, as I mentioned very long ago, I'm a fan of queues with verticality. The feeling of ascending to a great height or descending into the depths, these make a queue feel much more necessary than going straight ahead. And this might honestly be one of the coolest examples of that. You're traveling upwards towards the actual loading dock where you're given your mission and ship, and it feels great. The climb upwards where you can look down at the other guests, scale honestly cannot be beat. So now we get to the most polarizing part of the ride. Mondo Owada. Hold on, that's not right. Hondo Onaka. The ride has a pretty major issue that comes with this animatronic operating or not. It's a pretty high operations animatronic, similar to Tiana and Kylo Ren, but this one breaks down so much, and the pre-show in its vein pales in comparison. You could say that about any of these rides, and I want to focus on the positives. And the positives are that, in its A mode, this animatronic is incredible. As soon as I see him turn, I love when animatronics turn around. His outfit design, I don't know what it is, but it looks incredible in motion, and Lord Boxman gives a great voice performance too. The writing here is honestly hilarious. I don't know a lot about Hondo's character as someone who isn't a major Star Wars fan, but this convinced me he's pretty cool. And then you actually enter the Millennium Falcon. Wow. Just wow. Han Solo is my favorite Star Wars character, so to see this place realized, totally incredible. Best part is the chess set. By far, I can't think of a more accurate model in the entire series of parks than this. Again, Galaxy's Edge has the sense of placemaking that is unmatched, but the accuracy is what gets me here. I have it a bit lower simply because everything above is a little better, but if this doesn't crack the top 15, you know there is a lot more in store. Gnarly, tubular, way cool. These words can only describe two things: the special zone levels of Super Mario World, and the rock and roller coaster starring Aerosmith. And yes, this does extend to its queue. The exterior is its weakest point, save for the sick-as-hell guitar track above you. It suffers from that Hollywood Studios backlot architecture that, on its own, isn't very memorable. The record label look of the interior is great, very Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, with framed posters to look at. The music blaring overhead is good, all the record and guitar imagery is equally impressive. Now the pre-show. I don't know what it is. This pre-show is so unintentionally funny. Has any member of Aerosmith acted in their life? Is this mostly ironic enjoyment? Yeah. But my other thing is, again, the set dressing. The way that this is set up, that you're looking at the recording studio and the tech board behind it, and this is meant to replicate distance between you and the screen, but it works. And it works really well. It does hinder visibility purely based on how far away it is. Again, it's less because of the script or the acting, but it's plain good fun. I'm curious what the Muppets re-theme is going to do with the segment. I would love it if the Electric Mayhem is mid-recording, since it's much easier to make animatronics of felt than a bunch of guys. Now, the loading dock. One of the best to ever do it in terms of pure design. You board the ride in the studio's parking garage with surprising accuracy. The paint job, the doors and decor, down to the control booth, passing by chain link leading onto the street, the facade of the tunnel escape, and do I even need to point out the sign getting ready for you to take off? This is one of the most iconic roller coaster moments in the parks, and of course it's gonna do well. So while it loses some design points in its first half, it fires on all cylinders everywhere else.
Well, it just so happens that your friend here is only mostly dead.
Oh! That was the other Tomorrowland one. Why does nobody talk about this attraction? I'm serious. I've said that before. People always talk about skipping Monsters, Inc. Laugh Floor, and I get it. I don't get it, but I get it. But this queue is amazing. And I know what you're thinking. No, it's not. It's ugly. Hear me out. For a ride so simple, it transports you incredibly to Monstropolis. It honestly makes me excited for the new coaster if this was what we were able to do with such a simple design. You can tell me all you want that the flags and signs here are cheap looking and the bubbling parts aren't immersive, but honestly, this design isn't even why the attraction gets so many points from me. The queue is funny. Stupid jokes are in every corner, and similarly to Tron, it has this World's Fair vibe. First of all, the gimmick of this attraction is texting in your jokes, which it's such a good gimmick. I got picked one time and I remember being the happiest camper. Obviously, the punny sense of humor isn't going to be for everyone, but passing through the portal into Monstropolis leads to one of the best pre-shows in the history of Disney. One of the main ones where, without fail, the majority of the guests are laughing. I also just love the humor style of Monsters, Inc. in general, and if you don't like it, you won't like this attraction. But you have to admit that the queue's pre-show is the length of the main show. It gives you two for the price of one, in my opinion, which with unique animation and voice lines. And if you remember, one of the key factors is how much I want to get in this line. I love getting in this line for exactly this reason. Never too long of a wait, all indoors, and on top of that, as if you needed another reason from me. So unpopular, but it's my list. I hope to find another Monsters, Inc. truthers out there.
Where did you get that garden flamingo? I said nothing funny!
I was not expecting Mission Space to be so good, especially since I've never been in there. Of all the space-themed attractions, this one feels so much stronger because, of course, it's more specific to real-life space travel, and it looks the part. With giant spinning nodes and expansive control rooms, it's almost annoying that this is an Epcot and not Tomorrowland. I guess because it's modern space travel and not futuristic space travel. The giant planet set piece makes this feel so much grander, and it makes you excuse the sort of boring architecture, like Rock and Roller Coaster earlier in the list. But here the interior makes better use of its space. Giant set pieces. My favorite is the space station that looks right out of 2001: A Space Odyssey. Even the room where you're sorted to your centrifuge is in an interesting shape and color scheme that really makes you feel like you're blasting off. And then in the sort of sorting room are a series of spacesuits, which are even cooler. It's got a nice pre-show, if a little bit scientific and technical. I think this is very high because it's very immersive, but it's really only going to speak to a niche of space fans.
What happened?
If you couldn't tell, I'm a sucker for anything involving the mouse. But also, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway did replace what used to be my favorite ride of all time, so the rat's on thin ice. Taking place inside the Chinese theater, this is the centerpiece of the park. Its external queue is not good. This is what makes it not any higher, but once we compare it on its own, it's really good. The interior keeps everything from the old Chinese theater on the Great Movie Ride, with its beautiful mural in the top section, but the line used to house movie props, and I remember that making me totally excited, but unfortunately those props were removed. What takes up the empty space now are these posters along the walls showing episodes of the new Mickey Mouse cartoons. And I want to point out how happy I am that this was the versions of the characters that were used, because these cartoons are hilarious. You keep walking through these segments until being sorted into theaters, and I bet you're thinking, hey, how come this is this high and half the queue is mid at best? Oh, my sweet Padawan, it is time to talk about the pre-show. Not only do you get to watch the screening of an exclusive Mickey short with a banger song, but it has one of my favorite elements ever, cast member interaction. The way that the pre-show directly impacts the riders themselves, the effect of the screen breaking open, and Goofy literally talking to the cast member, one of my favorite feelings of immersion. The change of style once you pass through the screen may seem like a cheap tactic to only renovate half the ride, but the way I see it, this was the perfect way to retheme it. Think of it this way, if this design had been the entire queue, they not only would be retheming the beautiful theater, but would most likely change the entire exterior as well. This is a smart solution. This is so magical, for the same reason Philhar Magic made it as high as it did. As long as there's an element of your queue I can't get anywhere else, I'm going to take that as major fun.
But if they attack from the rear, I'm a goner! There! But what about the possibility of an aerial attack?
You want to talk about transporting someone somewhere else? Man, do I have the queue for you. The effects of Frozen Ever After are similar to the ones used in the Mexico Pavilion, where you're transported into a town at night, even though you're indoors. You walk in to see storage before walking through this building and down to Arendelle. And it's a pretty small space, all things considered, but it looks really good. Entering through buildings on a stone alcove, as well as buildings for ice cutters, and you walk inside and suddenly it's nighttime. Something about the forced perspective beyond the wall makes the city feel much more sprawling than the space you take up. It does have iffy wait times. You can go a while without feeling like you've moved, but I've never been totally miserable because the space is small. But it's not claustrophobic small either. The black stanchions look really good, and I love this section towards the end in Oaken's shop. It is a bit bizarre now that he's here in the middle of Arendelle as opposed to high in the mountains, but you know what? Elsa lets the gay community in with open arms. Happy Pride! The screen implementation is great here too. It's more obvious than some of the others we've seen so far, but the steam is a smart looping gag. It does fall victim to a similar lightning lane is king issue that Toy Story Mania has, but it's more manageable here than there. The loading dock itself is this adorable little harbor shack, cozy and homey, and the lanterns provide warm lighting. Honestly, it's nice to see how warm a place like freezing cold Arendelle happens to be.
Food! Water! Atmosphere!
Another one I haven't been on, big shocker, but Tiana's Bayou Adventure. Based on walkthroughs alone, this queue is so comforting. Even the external section with the children's garden, starting with the entrance, even that comes out great with the paint job, the big building, and this pretty color scheme, and the truck. I love this truck so much. Amazing post-canon place setting for the movie. I know people are discontent with the simple plot of this ride, but I think this is a really good conclusion to come to. The first kitchen is so homey. This is exactly the tone you're supposed to have for a story with Tiana, and you can feel almost this place is actively being used. The only thing breaking some of the immersion are these fences and barriers against the wall. It makes sense why they're there at the same time, so you don't touch everything. The newspaper clippings are full of extra lore. The posters make this feel so active, as if the place will exist after you leave, and it existed beforehand. All the original photos add more backstory and look great on the walls. They don't overcrowd it either, instead making it feel very warm. On top of that, oh my god, does the food here look so good. I want to eat all of it. I would drink a bottle of that vinegar. Do not test me. The prop work here is incredible. A true feat for Disney. When you change an attraction, you have to be aware of the old space you're taking up in order to properly use it, because demolishing it and starting it from scratch is typically really, really, really expensive, so starting from the ground up is a pain, and this uses the old area perfectly. There are times I forget I'm even moving through the old winding tree of Splash Mountain while looking through this. Similarly to Seven Dwarves, the safety spiel here looks so good on this scrolling wooden puppeted look with that art style of Almost There. They really did think of everything. I don't know. Again, I just feel warm and cozy and fuzzy with this queue. Even the loading dock is entirely transformed with the buildings surrounding you. I just want to live here. And here we are. The top 10. The final frontier. I already used that joke. But we're finally here in the top 10 queues. I mean, I've kind of established it so far in this video, but very few of these queues have actually been bad. And most of the ones of this has actually been really good. I would willingly wait in most of these queues. But they blow it out of the water with their immersion, with their design, with the interactivity, with everything. So let's get into the final top 10.
Welcome to the Himalayas!
Expedition Everest's queue is, and as I'm writing this, I'm debating putting it higher because the level of detail here is stunning. Just from its exterior mountain in the back of the stone building in front, this is a more expansive version of everything I loved about Kali River Rapids. The placemaking is incredible. It doesn't necessarily transport you somewhere else separate from the rest of the, Asia area, but acts as an extension of it. This is generally something almost all Animal Kingdom rides have down to a T, but especially this one here. You travel through rooms for the Expedition Company and temples and other prep stations, but we all know what we're here for. The museum! Easily the greatest museum of any of the ones in the park, bar none. The way that this blends the storytelling of the ride itself with real-life artifacts is incredible. These items were sourced by Imagineers referencing actual Himalayan mythos, and I love it! I love you history being studied and used to inform fantasy. Oh, it's my favorite meal of the day. And the reason this is better than Walt Disney Presents is its presentation. The way the cases look, the way they're laid out. Why do we keep making boring stanchions when we can have more of this? Disney, please make more things for guests to look at in queues. I promise you it will play off. Obviously, this is technically only one room, but the progression of story here, getting you familiar with the mythos in a passive way, it isn't an info dump so much as it is a read-at-your-own-pace thing.
You kidnapped Jack Black? That's illegal. But Kermit, what's more illegal? Briefly inconveniencing Jack Black or destroying the Muppets? Kidnapping Jack Black, Fozzie?
I hope you all know I am praying for the Young Frankenstein-esque revival of this show. They have the pieces, and I have hope in my heart, and because of that, she's being included here. And even then, as a Muppets fan, it would be blasphemy if I didn't include it. Being inside the Muppet Theater here is a goldmine. This may be one of the densest packed queues in terms of its comedy and gags, but also its architecture, and it all makes sense since this was Jim Henson's final project, for it to be exactly what the Muppets ordered. But it's got the charm everywhere in an effortless way, scrolling on the walls and the security door. You're really being taken on a tour from the comfort of your seats in there. But what's really key here is the pre-show room. For those with eyes to see, you can find so much obscure Muppet lore, and if you're not a Muppet fan, this is pure ridiculous fun. Being in the prop room not only elevates this backstage experience I mentioned before, but everything that lines the walls and ceiling makes this feel so heavily used. And also, you know all the shit I was giving old Hollywood Studios architecture? That's because this set the bar so high for how you should live the rides. Maybe it's my backlot nostalgia talking, but I want to see how it's all made. And that doesn't mean it should lack character because it's a blank slate, but because it should actively be used. So the pre-show itself, how does that hold up? Essentially no notes. Definitely the best pre-show on its own. Unlike most pre-shows with screens that only use one screen and project it across every screen in the house, this pre-show is separated into 3 different screens that connect the scene. And again, because it's written by the classic Muppets writers, you're in an exclusive episode of The Muppet Show where you're a central focus, and everybody wants to be in an episode of The Muppets. And if you don't, are you sure you aren't in denial? You've been in this video a long time. All of your favorites are here, and all of them show up and do their best. As of right now, it isn't any higher simply because you can't go on it anymore, but you can trust I'm holding out hope we'll see it again. Kermit, come home, the kids miss you!
Yeah, now, in this neighborhood... Very well, if you wish.
I bet you thought Star Tours would be the lowest rated Star Wars ride, didn't you? Luckily for you, I'm full of surprises, even in the late game. Just don't start counting on your fingers what you are and aren't missing. That comes out of my commission. But yeah, Star Tours. While being very different from the one-to-one queue of Smuggler's Run, this has two things going for it above that, which are consistency and comfort. Starting with comfort, this is a pretty easy walk-on attraction in my experience. If not a walk-on, then the wait is always shorter than what I think it's gonna be. And its theme is kind of funny, because this is already one that exists in two different rides in Walt Disney World bubble on its own. Flight agencies. We already have a space flight agency in Space Mountain. Disney must really love their air travel, but where Space Mountain lacked towards the end of keeping that plot thread high, Star Tours knocks it out of the park. It's honestly sort of funny, too, with the way its exterior is created, making the illusion of a set from the third one? I mean, the sixth one? In the middle of filming, the ride isn't the one taking you through the production of Star Wars, and instead puts you in the world as guests booking a flight as you're led by Ali San. Who names these guys? Something about seeing your flight pod being set up by the droids before you get on is so immersive. All the space ones tend to be, but this one even more so. And you know it's got that verticality the same way Smuggler's Run does it. I'm a little more partial to the sleek style, especially for Star Tours. Even the main loading docks resemble airport terminals. This knocks it out of the park, putting together the best elements of Soarin' with the best of Smuggler's Run, making something even better for a simulator. And even though I'm not a big Star Wars fan, I do love me some C-3PO, so seeing his involvement in the pre-show is really good. It has so much fun by setting it in the Star Wars universe, and I don't know, it generally has really good safety spiel in general. Good job, but just a little more to handle a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
No. In order to apprehend this criminal, we've taken our mighty Sky Police, and with an added budget of only $600 billion, created Space Police.
Guys, don't be mad if I rank this really high all because of its pre-show, okay? Don't be mad. The novelty hasn't worn off me yet, and I doubt it ever will. For Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind to be on such a big scale while not sacrificing its use of space is impressive. Similarly to my mention of Star Wars, I'm not a diehard Marvel fan, but Guardians is one of their properties I enjoy, so that impacted this decision at least a little bit. First off, the exterior is sleek. This kind of everything's chrome in the future look does a really good job of selling the location. The overhead projection of the planet playing its cutscene looks great, even when not in its A story mode, because it's so big it gives that planetarium effect. And what's my favorite word? Verticality. The props in this line are a bit boring compared to other museum-type queues, if extremely detailed. They're probably geared more towards, you know, actual Marvel fans. I love the interviews in the queue, though. Obviously, getting all the actors to reprise their roles is a big part of it, but the tone especially is aced here and how awkward it is for the Guardians to be considered, well, Guardians. It doesn't feel effortless, no matter the part of the timeline this ended up in, but the costume and ship designs, as well as the world building, set this as another World's Fair, which fits the premise well, especially for Epcot. But, you know, I'm delaying the inevitable. It's time to talk about that pre-show. The writing is... okay, I'm not harping on the Epcotians joke more than we need to. We roll with the punches. It still does a good job of welcoming you, even with the handicap of Marvel writing at the helm. In fairness, it does in fact fit the writing style, so I can't be too mad, but when I tell you this sets the tone... do I even need to point out how technologically impressive this is? For something so simple as a wall on a pulley system, this effect is perfect. I remember seeing it for the first time, and my heart dropped. When that switch happens, I think it's the closest a human being can feel to being hollow purpled. Because the space is so big, the teleportation effect felt so much more real. Seeing Isan's scale as a villain puts into perspective what a cosmic level supervillain should be. Not just you, but the planet is a tiny toy compared to him, so there's not only urgency here, but danger that's hard to simulate without such a giant scale. Leaving the introduction room down this red danger zone corridor, you make it to the loading dock, which feels like a superior one to Tron, but of a similar notion and scope, though the track is less integrated into the story here than that ride was able to pull off. But from a design perspective, making sense of urgency for the guests is always a positive. For technical purposes, obviously getting guests to move faster keeps wait times down, but also, and I don't know if any science backs this up, it makes you feel even more excited. Even when you're nervous or excited for a roller coaster or other thrill ride, when you have that added push of, you have to go or the world's gonna end, you're even more pumped up. Which, this isn't the last time we see that. Overall, great queue with sweeping landscapes and character.
Honey, I'm home!
God, putting this on the list feels like me waiting to pull the plug on a beloved friend, but yeah, Dinosaur's great. Really great, actually. I know it'll be replaced with Indiana Jones, and I'm waiting with bated breath hoping for that queue to be even a measure as good as this one. The external section moves fast if you're waiting here for that long, and yeah, it's another museum. Who would have guessed? Most people have gone through some sort of prehistoric or dino phase as kids, so everybody's gonna like this, at least at some point in their life. Seeing the animal models and skeletons in the first section, and you know who else is there?
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Genuinely, I forget Bill Nye was a Disney show until I remember he wasn't in one, but 2 Disney Parks attractions. Which, yeah, you know what? You go, girl. He explains some facts about the dinosaurs in an intermittent show, the same way the one from Guardians does, and I love sitting in the museum area. I remember as a kid always wishing that they'd make this into a bigger natural history museum, something closer to the seas, and now we'll never get it. But regardless, when I was younger and afraid of most rides in Animal Kingdom, this was my go-to for thrills. But by far, though, the best part of this is the pre-show. Dr. Seeker and Dr. Marsh are my favorite Disney park characters by an absolute long shot. And it's so weird, too, because they are only in this ride. There is no merch of them. The only place they're mentioned outside of this is the Disney Springs Christmas Tree Trail, and Dr. Seeker was mentioned in a chapter book back when the ride was still called Countdown to Extinction. And that's it. But honestly, even if the Muppets pre-show is better, even if the Monsters, Inc. pre-show is funnier, no pre-show is more quotable than this one. Of all the unique home to the park's Disney attractions, with one exception we haven't gotten to, this is easily one of the most quotable pre-shows ever. From Seeker's little dino puppet to the whole access denied thing, Marsh's interruption, even the setting of the Dino Institute. The world of Dinosaur is entirely its own, and I will never stop talking about how much I'm gonna miss it. The loading dock area looks so good, with the pipes going through the walls, the hissing laboratory noises, and my god, look at the Time Rovers! This is set dressing in a unique way. We've seen cowboys and haunted houses and space, but this is so much more different than that. This grungy sort of lab setting, not sleek or sterile, and that's what makes it unique to this ride compared to anything else, and I'm gonna miss it.
The One Piece is real!
And so, the classics persist. Talk about transporting you, oh my god. Pirates of the Caribbean is the crown jewel of Adventureland. The indoor-outdoor queue leading into the Castillo del Moro is already transporting you. It's partially the lighting, partially the open concept into the gift shop, but you'd think something so open wouldn't feel so separate from everything else. And then once you're actually in the fortress, you aren't anywhere close to Disney World. You are in a Spanish fortress about to brush shoulders with pirates. All the equipment, the cells, and the skeletons that line the area transport you into an entirely new space. The rockwork here is very different than any of the other we've seen, because nothing else has emulated this fortress style before. The lighting is really dim, especially for a Disney ride. You go past so many cannons and stock rooms, and the illusion here comes from lighting tricks from different areas showing the other dungeons and such. And it feels so technically impressive because of how much older it is. And you can touch basically everything against the wall. I understand the need to hide certain props in other rides because people could break them, but here everything is so sturdy and tactile as you weave back and forth through the lines. The uniqueness of this queue boils down to its age. It doesn't look bad by any means, but it looks different than the style of rides being done nowadays. Even the other pirate attractions have a level of polish that isn't here. Also, the smell? Obviously the best water ride sent for this one, hands down bar none. It's iconic for a reason. But for this, it's that loading dock that really cements how good this one is, being the exterior of the fortress. It's more obvious that you're not actually outside here when compared to Mexico and Frozen, but I don't care. The pulley's mimicking a real dock, and even though the way the boats enter are top-notch, the rocks before the cavern showing the full moon with a ship in the distance, it doesn't matter that this queue doesn't have many effects. It does transport you, and that is the biggest key to success.
Pull the lever, Kronk.
So, I kind of like all things spooky, and I kind of like TV history. So yeah, of course I'm going to like the queue for the Tower of Terror. You want to talk about using Hollywood architecture, the thing I've given this park flack for the entire time to its highest degree. It's this. Just look at it. It may be getting extra attention because of how damn big the thing is, but it has character, which is something I can't say for the exteriors of most Hollywood Studios attractions. The exterior awning with these beautiful lanterns is already breathtaking, but when you add in the echoes, my god, when you add in the echoes, it really does its job to show that you shouldn't be here, and it's been frozen in time. The internal lobby, covered in dying plants and cobwebs and that crow statue in the center, I want to live here too! The ceiling is so high and lit with this grimy light. The entire thing is so gross, for lack of a better word, but trust me, it's a positive here. The first interior section isn't that long as you pass by the broken down elevators and into the pre-show room. And I have to say, using actual footage of Rod Serling was a cool decision by the editors making the video, a great homage to the guy. The room left behind, this beautiful study, is covered head to toe in detailed books and etchings. Then you get into the elevator shaft room. The back rooms here, with the massive boiler and brickwork, really emphasize that you shouldn't be here feeling. And the loading docks here might as well be some of the most clever ones I've ever seen. So cramped and tight-knit in these little elevator shafts, and while it's not nearly as expansive as some other upcoming queues, it's so detailed that I can't even try to argue with it. Amazing pre-show and design.
Measuring. Open your eyes.
This one's pretty awesome. The fact that this queue is baked into the land of Pandora is so sexy. But seriously, I love it. It really shows when queues are used as an extension of the story and not just pretty for looks or just copying the look of the area for cheapness. That being said, this is gorgeous. Remember what I said about that old grungy research lab look when I was talking about Dinosaur? This is the newer version of that. Down to the exit hallways, you can see the amount of care that went into the details of this space. It's a very Wooded Kingdom Mario Odyssey look by the way the lab is slightly overgrown with age. And I have to come clean. Unlike Marvel and Star Wars, which I enjoy to an extent, I do not like the Avatar films. They insist upon themselves. So for me to be this excited about a ride with this IP, insane. It goes to show a similar note that I had about Tron, that if you can make your audience care more about the experience and the universe than the story of the original IP, then that's a win in my books. And yeah, there are more Avatar fans than there are Tron fans, but that being said, this is more interesting because of the story it tells than about the movies themselves. The variety of environments here is what makes the progression so cool, starting in the forests and paths of Pandora, and then to the cave system with the paintings overhead. Then the abrupt shift into the research lab. There's something about how harsh the difference is that works so well in establishing where you are into the story. Then the airlock leading into the deeper caves with the bioluminescence. So pretty. You know what I mean? This example of plant life in a ride, even if it isn't real, is gorgeous. The worn out labels give a feeling that this has been here a while, and again, pretty similar to Dinosaur. And then the lab. Look at that. The amount of little special effects and experiments that were added in to add extra lore, the biological diagrams, the banshees, and do I even need to talk about the floating avatar? This is one of my favorite animatronics in the parks because of how real it looks. Forget the river shaman, I'm sticking with this guy. There's research tables and big murals and the hissing machinery of the loading docks. This is so detailed on every level, and I cannot sing its praises enough. Of course, the biggest detractor of this is that its waits can be astronomically long, but by the time you get inside, it honestly isn't that bad because of the amount there is to look at. The pre-show is also really clever, putting you in a room with all your comrades where you're scanned into an avatar. There's even a B mode when the ride isn't quite ready for you yet, which is a great premise. The pre-show isn't one that I find very quotable or interesting. Similarly to Mission Space, it's more educational than anything, even if it's a fictional topic. It fits well within the tone of Animal Kingdom's more educational side anyways. So yeah, I'd sacrifice hours of my day to experience this, who wouldn't? Now, as we go on to the final two, this was a really hard decision. One is a seasoned classic, and the other is a new and improved favorite, but one of them has to come up the victor. So if you're upset about the placement of either of them, you can always swap them, because they're both perfect in two entirely different ways.
Dude, that's my ghost!
You've all been waiting for this one. Hands down, one of the best dark rides of all time, also has one of the best queues of all time. Everything about the Haunted Mansion is great. Similarly to the Tower of Terror, its interior queue isn't as long as you'd think it is, but all the gags and details inside make up for that. But how does the outside measure up? As soon as you're in the mansion's gate, there's already a haunted carriage out there, the lights go on and off in the house if you're looking at night, and there's this covered section that's probably the least themed part of the queue. But as soon as you get to the interactive segment, you're good as gold. First off, all the interactivity stuff works here, and I love that. There's a murder mystery, a crypt that spits out bubbles, musical instruments, and books, and even a self-writing story. The interactive segment is phenomenal in my opinion because it isn't digital, and because anyone of all ages can use it. The graveyard leading inside has so many classic jokes as well, and with a ride this well written, it's great to see that taking over all throughout the queue. Inside, you have the pre-show with the decaying poster, which I have always wanted in my house. It is so Dorian Gray. Paul Frees has to be the best Disney ride voice actor in the history of ever for his portrayal of the ghost host. You know it, I know it, it isn't even worth arguing. There's pretty cobweb detailing here, and this gives you that horror chill. I don't know if they keep this ride physically colder than the others, but every time I walk in here, I know I've got that chill going through me. And now, for the most iconic pre-show. Yeah, you know it's the stretching room. No matter how many times I ride this ride, or how many times I go into the stretching room, it does not lose its appeal. Even if it wasn't obvious this was the other queue I was talking about in the dinosaur entry when it came to quotability, I can still recite it from beginning to end. The imagery in this room alone is so evocative of Disney World. The little gargoyle sconces, the various paintings, and the hanging up above. It's effortlessly creepy and fun from start to finish. Past that, you get one more room covered in paintings and specific detailing in the wallpaper and in the wood and in everything else. Peak detailing. It moves pretty speedy, it's cool inside and interactive outside. No notes. I am a Haunted Mansion superfan till the day I die, but not even my favorites can make it to number one. You had to know this was coming. If you didn't, I don't believe you. One of the things I said before is fun factor, right? How excited am I to get in line for this ride? Well, when your queue is part of the ride, you can bet your ass it's gonna be the best one. Rise of the Resistance is the only queue that challenges what a queue can actually be. Honestly, it's hard to call any of this a pre-show. Is it Rey's message? Is it the transporter? Is it the elevator with Hux and Kylo? It's really hard to define because there's so much to go off of. The exterior segment is well made with good winding paths, and the interior caverns are pretty well lit. Bonus points for all the rocks you can actually sit on here. It's a lot rarer that rides have seats at all, let alone these intermittent ones. The locked up resistance props that scatter the location sort of prove that people have been hiding here and waiting to strike. Yeah, it's another cave, but the audio design makes it a very different kind of cave. After you're led into the first pre-show, where you're addressed by Rey, it starts with a really impressive BB-8 animatronic. The way he rolls around is so cute, but so eerily lifelike by how impressive he is. And you want to talk about urgency, you are addressed directly, given a task, and you know you have to complete it, because now you have to get to the secret base, and you have to run for it. So when you run out and into the transporter, it feels so real. Now that you see the ship, you know you're actually being moved. And yes, the technology is relatively simple, but something about the subtle movements makes it more real. The fact that either side shows you a different perspective, with Lieutenant Beck being so close to the audience too, the screens everywhere showing different characters, detailing as your ship is taken and finally detained. Now the immersion here? Wow. Obviously, some cast members will be more into it than others, but the Imperial officers sort of scaring you off is something I wish Disney cast members would be allowed to do more often. And obviously, there's that reveal. Even though it isn't an instant movement, this is a heart-stopping transformation. Without a doubt, no other ride in Disney has made me feel like I genuinely left the space more than this one. Something of this magnitude with dozens of stormtroopers, it gives you chills. Even the major difference being the Resistance caves and the Imperial ship are so different, the rooms being monitored on all sides. And again, I have to shout out the cast members. Me and my sister came here once, and she was so excited to see the Kylo animatronics since this is her favorite ride, and within earshot of one of the officer actors, she said, "Kylo's my kitty, meow meow." What did you say about our Supreme Leader? And what was she gonna do? Break the bit now? No, she had to commit to the bit. I said he's my kitty, meow meow. So clearly the cast member is losing it, and she runs over to the other room and grabs two of the other officers. "Tell them what you just told me." And she was so dead serious. And again, my sister said, "He's my kitty, meow meow." But hey, when we were moved ahead to the prison transport, her horrible, beastly words got us put in the front row for being dedicated to their leader. And honestly, yeah. So kudos to whoever that cast member was. I really hope you see this someday and remember that moment. Anyways, past that, the prison transport scene is so intimidating. It's almost pure darkness, with Kylo casting shadows over the guests and genuinely threatening them. Then you're saved by Resistance members who burn through the door. This effect is sick as hell before you're quickly taken to your car and driven off from the loading dock. Everything about this process, from the design to the story to the actors, is entirely perfection. This is pushing what themed entertainment can be, and that's what makes this queue the best on the list. And it's done! God, that took way too long. If it wasn't obvious by the copious amounts of outdated content, I've had this video on the back burner for a while. I got a job, graduated school, all within me finishing this doozy of a project. It took a lot of time because of the huge length and also me creating all these little Octane sprites, but now, because of all that elbow grease, I may actually be able to output my next videos faster. Less footage to get, and also streamlining the editing process all makes this feel a lot smoother. 'Twas a bumpy ride of learning how to actually make video essays. With that being said, what's up next? Well, this channel isn't exactly going to be made up of just one topic. Yeah, Disney has my heart, but come on, man, there's more to life than some rides. I'm gonna stick to rankings for a bit because the format's familiar, but there's gonna be room for much more, including probably uploading Twitch VODs, since my Steam is full of random shit I actually haven't had a chance or reason to play. But now, I have the time and resources to set a Twitch schedule up, so keep an eye on that. But for actual edited video content, I have some very different ranking videos planned. First, ranking all the Oscar-nominated narrative features of the 2026 award ceremony. Nice and timely, and not too taxing to make. But it probably won't include shorts or docs, because it feels unfair to stack them against the longer form and narrative stuff. Second, ranking every Disney World ride based on the ride vehicle. Way less entries than this one, and it'll be a good filler in between bigger projects. Third, okay, I know I said I was gonna stop doing Disney, but I got another one. Like I mentioned in the video, I kinda wanna rank the Disney rides based on the story. I think that could be pretty fun. And finally, my giant magnum opus, which I'm keeping a super secret you'll never hear about. But seriously, that big project is gonna be kinda like this one, but more polished now that I know what I'm doing, so stay tuned for that mystery. I'd like to give a special thanks to my family, who gave me the kick in the ass needed to finish this whole project, as well as my friends for checking it all out. Also to Paradork, who was my extra editor on the project, giving me a bunch of extra clips and tips on how to finish it up. You guys are the reason I was actually able to finish this. And finally, to everyone still here, thank you so much for watching. So, adios high-octane freakazoids, see you next time.